For the people who were here this morning, relax. We're not going to do that much interaction again. A bit of interaction perhaps. But now I'm here to tell you about passionate partnering for testing. And I sent it into this conference and said, well, it's a bit of a fun track. So you might schedule it on a time in the day when people feel a bit down, a bit loss of energy, maybe right after lunch, or maybe if the after lunch dip kicks in. So I hope to get you out of this room with a bit more energy than you came in with. And I try to do that by telling you why testing is actually something everyone can do. Because it's so much like finding a spouse, finding a partner. Well, that's what I'm going to talk about basically. First, I'm going to introduce myself, and like I promised this morning, a bit of an introduction of you. Who was in my audience this morning? Hands? Oh, quite a lot of the audience, but not everyone. Ah, lucky. Okay. Then I'm going to talk a bit about techniques. Techniques you can use for testing, but techniques you can also use for partner choice, for partnering. And then, in the end, of course, I'll be talking about passion. Start with introductions. This is me in working life. I've been in testing for 16 years now. Started out as a test analyst, grew to be a test manager, a tutor, worked with several clients, and in my day-to-day life, something else. For the people who were in the audience this morning, there was not a picture there. Don't tell the other people what was there. I'll get to that later, okay? It has something to do with passion, okay? I do quite a lot of things in my non-working life. I live in Groningen, a place in the north of Holland. I do stuff with improvisational theater. And there's an interesting bit over there. I'll enlarge it a bit for you. That's this. Now, in this talk, I'm going to talk about testing techniques. Since you're all testers, some of the techniques might be known to you. And you might, because this is where the low energy is, you might feel the tendency to doze off a bit. Well, no, that can happen, of course. And since you know the technique I'm talking about, it doesn't matter at all. But if you hear about a technique you already know, start thinking about what is this? You all know what this is. I know you've seen it before, but in a different form. In the end of the presentation, I will tell you what common everyday thing this is, right? Okay. So you're guessing already? Keep it for the end and I'll ask what you think it is. And the answer was wrong, by the way. Ha! Okay. So, let's meet the audience then. I've told you a bit about me, a bit about you. Who of the audience is in testing? Hands, please. Well, that's almost all of the audience, which could be expected at an SQA day, of course. That's great. So we're all colleagues then. Okay. Since it's about partnering, who's male? Great. Female? I saw some people not raising their hands. They're still in doubt then. Okay. Let's go on. Who's in a relationship? Who's not? Who's not in a relationship? Everyone committed. Yeah, I am, but I'm trying to let people raise hands. Everyone's in a relationship. Whoa, interesting that. Okay, so you're going to be able to relate to many things I'm going to tell you. Who's from the Ukraine? Well, half of the audience. Great. Belarus? Almost the other half of the audience. Okay, Scandinavia, including, yes, 2 people even. The Baltic states, 1, 2, great. We've got Western Europe, 1. We've got coverage from all over. Russia, some more people. Well, we're covering, well, half of the world now. Great. Okay, some country I haven't mentioned, perhaps. Oh, sorry, what country did I miss? Croatia. Sorry, next time I'll put a map of Croatia in there. Great. So now that we know each other, let's go on with successful partnering. And like I said, testing and finding a date, a partner, is very much alike. So I'd like to shine a different light in this presentation on testing techniques and testing skills, and reiterate why our job, your job, testing is so very important. So like I promised, I'm going to talk about the techniques, but I'm going to include the passionate thing in between, because it's easy to tell. Now, the first thing I had to do when presenting, when thinking about this presentation, is realize, am I going to talk about white box testing or, of course, black box testing? We, as testers, all know the difference. In white box testing, you know the inner workings of the system you're wanting to test, and in black box testing, you don't know. So when I started to think about that, I realized that if I, let's just have a quick, okay, I have to keep track of time. I realized if I want to talk about partnering, and I want to do it by using white box testing, I'd have to know the inner workings of the male and female mind. And that might not be a pretty sight. So, let's not do that. Let's focus on black box testing for this afternoon then. So what I'm going to talk about is some techniques. Equivalence partitioning, who knows about that? Oh, quite a lot. Oops, sorry. Boundary value analysis, also known, very near equivalence partitioning. Decision tables, also called cause effect graphing. Quite a standard technique, isn't it? State transition testing. Great. And process testing. Great. You'll be able to relate to many of the techniques and see why they're so the same in choosing a partner. If time allows, that's why I just checked the time, I'll be talking a bit about A/B testing, agile testing as a method, and pairwise testing, but only if time allows. And in the end, of course, I will tell you about the end result of all these efforts for me personally. So, equivalence partitioning. Many people raise their hands, some not, so I'll explain very briefly what equivalence partitioning is about. Basically, what equivalence partitioning says is, if you have a system, you can divide it in what they call equivalent partitions. Partitions in which the system acts the same. So, for example, I have a system which will insure people who are 21 years or older. Then equivalence partitioning says, well, you can put someone in who's older than 21 years and test it, and if it goes okay, it will go okay for everyone older than 21 years old. So it doesn't matter if you put someone in for 80 years or 22 years, if one of those test cases goes alright, everything will go alright. And you can think of another test case in the negative group, put someone in from 3 years old and see if he doesn't get insurance. Of course, this has drawbacks, they will solve later on, but this is what equivalence partitioning says. There's one value per group, and if it goes okay, the whole group will go okay. Clear so far? Well, basically, this is what you do the very first step in choosing a partner. Should it be male or female, right? I think so. At least in Holland we have that choice. Well, for me, but this is a personal choice, the valid class would be finding a female, and the negative testing class would be finding a male. Now, the thing is, equivalence partitioning says, well, you should test for valid and invalid classes. And just like in testing, there are some classes that I personally don't feel like testing. But luckily, there's an answer to that, and it's called coverage. You can choose, if a technique says, well, this is the 100% test, you can choose what to test and what not to test. So for me, I chose, in my personal life, only to test the valid class for me, which was females. Clear so far? With me? Okay, great. Let's continue then. In equivalence testing, it says you can test several classes. So I had the class gender, but I could also focus on the class age, right? And what equivalence partitioning says is, do not combine invalid classes. So I could divide age in old people and young people. Well, does anyone know her? No one? Okay, I'll have to look it up because I don't pronounce it right otherwise. This is Misao Okawa, and she's officially the oldest woman in the world. She's 115 years old. She was born on the 15th of March, 1898, which makes her 115 years old. And this person resembles who? No, she's Yu Wenxia. She was the Miss World of 2012, and photographs of her are heavily copyrighted. So I have to reiterate that this is not a photograph of Miss Yu Wenxia, but someone very much like her, because the real Miss UHA doesn't have this black thingy in front of her eyes, right? Okay. So what equivalence partitioning says is you can combine classes. So if I should decide that I would focus on rather the younger people than the older people, equivalence partitioning says, well, you can combine finding out if a younger female partner for you, I personally, is okay, but do not combine invalid classes. Why not? Why is that? Why should you not combine invalid classes? Because not for me, that's definitely good. What did you say? Not enough time, and it wastes time, yeah? Something else? Sorry? It will be negative in any result, yeah. Suppose I was going to test this in a combination. I was going to find out if I liked an older gentleman, and I didn't like it. So what have I learned? Don't I like men? Men. Or don't I like older people? Or don't I just like older gentlemen? So if you combine negatives, you can't find out what the test result actually is. So I could try to combine a female that's older. If I don't like it, and I do like a female that's younger, then it has to do something with age, right? And believe me, I've tried. Not at all, but still. Okay. Now, on to the next technique, boundary value analysis. Also quite known to a lot of the audience. What boundary value analysis says is, well, looking at this equivalence partitioning, it didn't work very well. There were still errors that remained in the system. And when people started looking at where the errors were, they found out it was always, well, most of the time, at the boundaries of a system. So in my example, if I want to insure someone who's 21 years old or older, very many mistakes were made at the 21 age border. Of course, it gets programmed, people make mistakes, and he signs larger than, smaller than, stuff like that. So mistakes tend to pop up there. Okay. So, I could do this for partner choice too. I myself am 41 years old, so the boundary values for 41 would be 40 and 42, which means I should date people between 40 and 42 years of age. It's a bit small range. Now the thing is, there's an extra word there, granularity. And in boundary value analysis, the granularity says where are the borders? And for example, if I'm testing in, well, euros, because I know those, I would test at a 10 euro border. A border could be 9 euros and 11 euros. But if I would include cents, for 10 euros, a border would be 9 euros 99 cents and 10 euros and 1 cent. Do you see that? How it gets closer to the border or more away from the border? Well, that is what's called granularity, the fine print basically. So I decided for my granularity, I could switch the borders a bit, and well, people between 30 and 46 are still young for me, so that's a better border. Now, you might, the very observant viewers might see that there's a bit of a more difference between 30 and 41 than 41 and 46, which is perfectly according to a Swedish investigation which says that women prefer older men, but men prefer younger women. So, if you don't believe me, please look it up and find out. So, better for me to check that. So, let's see, yes. What other demands could you have for a partner? And if you shout, I'll write it down. And please try to shout one by one. So, who's first? What do you expect from a partner? Max, this might include some running again, sorry. No expectations from a partner at all. Well, that's quite easy. Ah, someone there. Cute, has to be cute. Reliable, now we're getting somewhere. I'll get to reliability later. Reliable, yes.
Patient.
Smart.
Patient?
Yeah.
You said patient and smart, you said?
Yeah.
Smart. Patient. Anything else?
Trustworthy.
Trustworthy, is that the same as reliable or is it different?
A bit different.
A bit different, we'll write it down. Trustworthy. Someone yelled something, but I didn't hear it. Ginger. Could be demand.
Blonde.
Blonde, of course. Let's put it together and say hair color. Okay. Funny? Yeah. Humor, sense of humor, funny. Okay, something else.
Cooking skills.
Cooking skills, wow. For ladies, it works both ways. You could say cooking skills for the men also, yeah.
Should be single.
Should be single, that's quite a good demand. Although I have some surprisingly old female friends who disagree sometimes, but that's a different story. Yeah. Something else? We've got sex. You wanted it in the middle, I have it in the middle now. You wanted it emphasized, so I've emphasized it. And bold and everything, but I already have a bad handwriting, so let's not make it worse. Okay, so there's quite a bit of demands you can have for a partner. And like we saw in this audience, you have to think about it for a while, but then once you start shouting demands, there are many, many demands. So let's go to decision table testing, or cause-effect graphing. For cause-effect graphing, basically what you do is you write down all the conditions in a system. And then there's this neat trick, which puts the conditions in a table, and then it combines every condition in every possible way. So it's, suppose you have 3 conditions, it makes one condition true and the other 2 not true, and then 2 true and 1 not true, and then all not true, and every possible combination. Right. And then you have to find out, so what action is going to happen. If some of the conditions are met, what action should the system do? Well, you can do the same for party choice. We could write down conditions, we just did. We need someone who has the right hair color, is cute, single, reliable, smart, sexy, funny, patient, trustworthy, and has cooking skills. And there are many, many more demands, I guess. And what would the action be? Well, select as a partner, perhaps, then, if someone meets all these criteria. Then we have to put the demands in the table and the actions. And we have to think about mutually exclusiveness. That's something decision tables focus on. It says if something is the exact opposite of something else, don't include it in the table. So if one demand would be he or she has to be rich, because that's very nice to live with. And someone else would say, well, he or she has to be poor, because then I earn the most money in our relationship. You put only one of these demands in there. Why? Because I just explained. We write them down, and every condition is going to be true once or more times, and going to be not true several times. So if you put rich in there, and it says yes, someone is rich. If it's no, then someone's not rich, so he or she's poor. Right? So we could write it down. And you have to phrase positively with not, which you already did. You did say not dumb, you said smart. This is very great. So you already phrased quite good for using decision tables. So we covered this. Now there is a problem with decision tables. If you make a decision table, like I said, you have to write down all the conditions, all the actions, have to find out if some condition combinations are not possible. To quote a joke, is it really possible that someone who is blonde is also smart? Apologize for the blonde people, but right? You're blonde. Right. But what happens then is you'll have to make a table. You'll have to make columns, and in each column you have a combination of conditions. So how many columns do we get for 3 conditions? Anyone?
2 power 3, 8.
2 to the power of 3, exactly. So 8. 2 to the power of number of conditions. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 2, 4, 8. I can only do that in those 1024. We would have 1024 columns there, which is quite a lot if you work out all the yeses and nos. So if I were to test my demands, which were quite a bit, even more than we could think of earlier. That's quite a lot of tests to do. So would there be a way to reduce the number of tests? And I would have to date someone who is cute, but not single, reliable, smart, sexy, patient, trustworthy, cooking skills, funny, and the right hair color. And it would take me the rest of my life. So could we reduce the number of tests? Anyone? Yes, decision tables has a way of thinking about it. And one of the ways they say you can reduce is using the Moscow method. Must, should, could, won't. Who's heard of it? Most people, I think. No, not that many people. If you have some test cases, you look at them, or you look at the requirements, you can do it in an early stage, and you say, okay, what is a must-have? What must really be implemented in the system, or what must really be tested? Please bear in mind, a commonly known mistake is that people say, well, a could-have requirement is also a could test. That's not the case. You could have a could-have requirement. It happened to one of the banks in Holland. They had a could-have requirement in which people who had savings at the bank got extra points. And you could use these points to get all kinds of funny stuff from the bank, a wallet or a poster or whatever. And it was a could-have requirement, but they had time, so they built it. And they tested it, well, on a could-have scale, so very roughly, maybe using equivalence partitioning or whatever. Then it went live, and it didn't work. So people didn't get the points they were expecting. And people started taking their money from the bank, bringing it to other banks. Why? Because they said, well, if this bank can't even manage the points we should earn, can they manage my money? Right? So it was a could-have requirement, but it should have been a must-have test. Right? Is it clear how this must, should, could, well, works? Right? Yeah? Okay. So I could do that for the demands I have for partner 2. I could say, well, what do I think is really important? What's less important, even less important, etc. But the thing is, when I'm in love, and it's for most people the case, I look to the world in rose-colored glasses. And for some things I thought before, well, it's really a must-have. She must really be smart. But when I'm really in love, I think, well, I think that's smart enough. Right? So it kind of disagrees with the Moscow principles because I can't judge it very thoroughly then. Complicated. So, is there anything else that could be helpful in finding a partner? Well, who knows about ISO 9126? And some people, okay. ISO started thinking about software quality a long time ago, and they found out, well, you can measure software quality on 6 scales, basically. They're called attributes. Every attribute has a sub-attribute, or more sub-attributes. So they split down, for example, functionality. They say, well, you can measure that on many ways, and they explain it to you. This is the testing we are doing over and over and over again. Seeing if a system works functionally fine. Apologies. 50%, okay. This is called functional testing, the rest is called, if you're testing one of those, it's called non-functional testing. So if you hear people say non-functional testing, they're testing usability, maintainability, how good can it be maintained, portability, can I transfer it to another platform, or does it work on my laptop and also on my mobile device? Efficiency, is it fast enough? Load and performance testing is part of efficiency. Reliability, it's space shuttle stuff. If one CPU drops out, is there another CPU taking over? Stuff like that. But again, let's see if we could use this for choosing a partner. One mnemonic to remember it by, if you want to remember all 6, remember the word perfume. And then drop the last E, but then you can, perfume, you can remember the ISO 9126 key attributes, right? So, for a partner, portability, well, that would be, is she willing to move? Is she living far away? Is she willing to move to my place? Could be great. Efficiency, is my future spouse a bit stress-proof? Reliability, you mentioned it, it's on the plate over there too. Is she reliable? I think it's very important. Functionality, I really do not want to discuss as usability. I don't dare to go there at the moment, so... Would there be a match with maintainability? Yes. How much does it cost to maintain a wife? I couldn't find a symbol for the local currency, so I used euro signs instead, but you know what I mean. It struck me that when I showed the euro signs that the people laughing loudest were the women for some reason. Strange. Okay. One sidetrack, I mentioned ISO 9126, but it's an old ISO standard. It's being replaced now by ISO 25010. And it's a bit off track, but I wanted to tell you that because otherwise you only know about an old standard. ISO 25010 tells also about software quality characteristics, but it has split it in product quality and quality in use. So this is when you make the thing, and this is when you use the thing, basically. And it's very clever, because they didn't have that beforehand, and demands on quality are different if something is already in production than if you're producing it. And there is something odd about this, which has nothing to do with partner choice, but which I wanted to tell you about anyway. Because these are the key attributes for product quality. They're almost the same as I showed you in 9126. Security has come up as a separate key attribute. Before it was located at functionality. And the nice thing is that we can have the same mnemonic almost. See perfumes. Well, it was perfume, it's multiplied now and you have to watch it, but okay. Now for quality in use, effectiveness, efficiency, satisfaction, freedom of risk and context coverage, there's also an mnemonic. And strangely enough, does anyone see the mnemonic in here? So, product quality is about sea perfumes and about feces. Odd how things work in the world sometimes, but okay, let's get back to partner choice. Let's go to state transition testing. I already asked you, almost 3/4 of the people know about it. Basically, state transition testing is about my alarm clock. It's about systems that can be described in different states. Well, my alarm clock has several stages, and if I make it easy for you and myself, my alarm clock has states show time, and it will stay in that stage until a certain trigger shows up, which is the current time is exactly the same as the set alarm time. And then it will go to another stage called loud and noisy beeping. And it will continue to do that until I hit the snooze button. And if I hit the snooze button, for most alarm clocks, some models you can put a number in yourself, but for most alarm clocks, it will go to a stage called countdown for 9 minutes. I've wondered for years why it's 9 minutes and not 10, which would be logical to me, but I found out, and if you're interested, I'll tell you later. But after 9 minutes, it will pop back to loud and noisy beeping, right? And if I hit snooze again, it goes up and down again, and if I put my alarm clock off, it goes back to representing time, right? So this was what state transition testing is all about, representing time. You've got states, the things in the squares, the rectangles. You've got triggers, things in the arrows, which tell you, well, if the current time is exactly the same as the alarm set, then you go from this stage to that stage. And if you're really bound to the method, you'll even write down under a line what happens if you go from this state to that state. Now, in most state diagrams, you don't see the thing underneath the line because it's very obvious if you follow the arrow what's happening. But in methodology, it says it should be there. Now, this also has to do with chouse coverage or switch coverage. I didn't ask you before, but who's worked with switch coverage, with chouse coverage? 2 people. Okay, to explain very, very quickly, to test the system of an alarm clock, it could be very interesting to know that the states changes from represent time to loud annoying beeping if the current time is really alarm set time, right? Could be good to know. However, what Chow discovered was, well, it's maybe really nice to know if you can go from one stage to another stage. But it might be even more interesting to know if you can go from here to there, given that you arrived here by going from there to there. right? That's another step. Basically, it's the same question as if I have that laptop, if I start it up, can I start up PowerPoint? Or, if I have that laptop, if I start it up, can I start up Outlook for my email? That's all walking through one line. But I could also ask the question, can I start up Outlook given the fact that I've already started up PowerPoint? Right? That's a different question. It's a more thorough test. Well, that's basically what Chow said. He said, well, if you have 0 switch coverage, you test single arrows. If you have 1 switch coverage, you test pairs of arrows. So, for example, you go to the stage loud, annoying beeping and hit snooze, given the fact that you got into loud and annoying beeping from represent time to there. And then in another test, you test if you can hit snooze after you went to loud annoying beeping from the countdown over there, right? So that is how state transition testing is working. It's a very quick overview. I recommend the course in testing techniques, and then we'll spend 2 hours on this. But what does this say about partnering? Well, in partnering, we also have states. At some stages in your life, you're young and single and happy. And life will progress. And at some point, you might be older, single, and less happy. Right? And people might ask, can I go back? Well, the rotten thing here is no, you cannot go back because you can't get any younger. Right? The only thing we haven't fixed yet. So, we've got some stage. But what is the trigger to go from here to there? Well, basically the trigger is life itself. Oh. So life makes you go from the one stage to the other stage. Are there more states in life? Yeah, there are. You could go from older and single and less happy to older and single and unhappy. Or to older and single and happy again, could be. Or for young and single and happy, you could go to older and relationship and happy, or older and relationship and unhappy. And there are many, many ways these could be interconnected. Now the thing is, if you want to test those, you need to know what the trigger is for each of those arrows. Now the trigger for each of those arrows, again and again and again, is life. Life, what's happening to you, is what makes you older and not younger, and single and happy and unhappy and whatever. So this is not a suitable technique for partner choice. You can't use it. There's too many triggers with the same trigger. Now, process testing then. Process testing is high-scale testing. You follow the process. You have a described process and you see if you can do all the steps, which include IT systems and also around the IT system. So you look at the manual processes. Now, some people think that life is predictable, or that if you put something in here, of course, it will result in always the same effect. Well, my understanding of life is if I do the same thing over and over again, it will not always lead to the same outcome. So again, this process testing is not a suitable technique for partner choice. Now, like I promised, I'll check the time. 5 minutes even. Ooh, I thought 20, but 5. Okay, I'll speed it up a bit. A/B testing is about comparing 2 possible solutions. So you compare solution A with solution B. So for testing solution A and B, I would have to have a relationship with 2 young women and find out what is the best solution. Choose the best and repeat every few years. When I suggested this solution to my then girlfriend, this was her response. Okay. Agile testing could be an option. It's very good. Satisfy the customer. Ooh, my girlfriend got very enthusiastic about that. Welcome change. Sure, we're changing. The world is changing. Let's welcome change. Make it work fast. Let's find out if this is a really good relationship for all of us. Work together. Sure, relationships are about working together. We need to motivate and trust each other. Have conversations, guys. Right. If it works, progress. That was the part she was very enthusiastic about. At a constant pace, avoid any stress. Well, that's good. Attention to good design. Well, I certainly had. Keep it simple. It's a self-organizing system, so you don't have to do anything about it, and reflect and improve. At this point in time, I had my girlfriend very enthusiastic about this agile approach of a relationship, until we got to the point, work in teams. And it again led to the same conclusion. So pairwise testing. Now, what is pairwise testing about? for all pair tests all possible combinations. So you get several options and you don't test all combinations but only 2-on-2 combinations. So, and it's based on the fact that then you find the most, if not all, defects. Well, it can be extrapolated to test all 3s, all 4s, etc. And when I got to that last point, testing all 3s and 4s, I got the same reaction again. Now, error guessing. Error guessing is about thinking beforehand what could go wrong. And if you know it, let's find a test to find out if it really goes wrong, right? That's about...
3 slabs.
Sorry?
There would be 3 slabs.
3 steps.
If it goes wrong.
Yeah, well, it could be. Well, let's find out. Thinking about what could go wrong is error guessing, and then actually executing that is called a fault attack. So, let's try. It could fail my relationship if I cook good food. Hey, cooking skills. Okay, so let's try it. I tested it. Well, not a very bad cook. So I learned. It doesn't fail. Good, I did a fault attack. It's still working. Okay, well, this seems to be a method we can use for choosing a partner. It could fail when I cheat on you. Let's test it. And again, 3 slaps. Yeah, I could go back and forth, but she wasn't very enthusiastic about it. So, to summarize. In daily life, we could use equivalence partitioning, boundary value analysis, decision tables, and some non-functional testing even. Some other techniques I mentioned are quite useless. So what did I do? I promised you I'd tell you that. I found out early in life that in the equivalence partitioning part, like I showed you, I would focus on the valid class of women. I had some boundary value analysis over there, and it turns out I focused on the lower boundary, exactly as this Swedish guy who wrote the article I told you about predicted. I found a younger woman. Also through life I learned that many of the demands I had for a partner, over there, well, some weren't that important when I grew older, and others became even more important to me. I had very many of these in my table, and when stuff fell out of my demands, luckily I could skip many of the test cases. Some even got to the stage don't care, which was the minus sign you saw flipping back. But still, when I got into relationships, I looked to the world in rose-colored glasses, which led to some ugly situations and to despair. Luckily, I learned. So next time I was in a relationship, I looked to the world through rose-colored glasses and had the same effect again. And luckily I learned, and you can guess what happened. Indeed. So in the end, I said, I felt alone and miserable. But this changed because I met this woman. And on the 9th of June 2012, we got dressed up very nicely, as you can see on this photograph. I didn't even come to the plot yet. We went to City Hall, had a nice speech in which this lady over here forgot my name, which was a bit of a shame, but my then wife got text messages later on asking, so did you go on holidays with René or with Peter? Because he... but, well, in the end, she did sign some papers, well, we both did sign some papers. And now she's known as Helene Tuinhout, which is my last name, Stella, which makes me very proud. She is female. She is exactly in the range that I predicted she would be. And she's very communicative, humorous, and most of all accepts my oddities, which makes me very happy. So, exploratory testing in the end proved to be the technique to find a partner for me. Please remember, despair is part of the progress. You might recognize that. Changing requirements along the way might be a good approach, but, and this is what I want to end with, yes, I see the cross, haven't we seen this process before in testing? Some people have an idea, they're enthusiastic about it. In this enthusiasm, they forgot some relevant conditions, or even consciously neglected those, which I did in finding a partner. We spent time and money, lots of money, on the idea of this new computer system, and along the way we find out the world or the system isn't as ideal as we thought. Sounds familiar? It's a bit making IT systems, isn't it? Keep changing the requirements all over again. So some people in IT are looking to the world in rose-colored glasses. What they need is people with common sense. People who can think about it, can say, well, it's too rose-colored now, we have to know what the risks are, we need to check if this is really going to bring you what you need. In partner choice, happiness, in IT, a system what does what you need it to do. So in the end, what it needs basically is people with common sense, which is you, and you all could make the world's systems very excellent. Thank you very much. Yeah, sorry, one more minute. Anyone, any ideas? Wow! Yeah, what? Ladies and gentlemen, it's cashew nuts. Cashew nuts come from a tree like this, then they throw away the fruit, which you can just eat. For a honeymoon I went to the Gambia, that's where I saw this. You can eat it, but we throw it away. And then it's these nuts that you can buy in any store. That's why they're so expensive. We throw away the most part of it.
Or
So
you need to pay money for someone to eat the fruit.
and you, no, it's very nice. It's a very nice fruit. You don't have to pay. So, again, thank you very much.